And so tell me about the project. How did you become involved in the Defiant Ones? Where did it all begin for you?
This started with me and Dre wanting to do a documentary about his life. And I called, well, I can't say HBO anymore because it's Netflix. I realized it. And then me and Dre had an idea to do a documentary on his life. And then we found out that Jimmy was doing one on Interscope. And I was like, wait a minute, why don't we do this together? Because I had known both gentlemen at that point for over 20 years.
Brilliant. So how do you know each of the guys? Where did their relationship begin with both of you?
I met Dre on an NWA music video set when I was 19. And I wanted to be introduced to Eazy-E, and I approached him for some reason. And then I met Jimmy right before that because my brother and I had done all of Tupac's first music videos at Interscope. So that's when I met Jimmy. Like months apart, like 2 months apart.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And had you been in contact with both of them ever since?
Yeah.
Okay.
I throughout the years been friendly with Jimmy and Dre like this, and then eventually I had a record deal at Interscope as well for 4 years. So I had that side with Jimmy, and then that record deal was meant to work with Dre as well. So yeah, but me and Dre never worked together before this.
So what was it important for you to get across in this 4-part series? What's kind of the main message?
Well, the number one thing was to try to understand that dynamic of that relationship. You know, a black guy, a white guy in a partnership like this, and how long they've been together and how successful they've been, especially in these times, and both gentlemen coming from like racially charged neighborhoods. And what is it about that relationship that keeps it going and keeps it vital, you know? And what's special about each one of their journeys, because Jimmy has a very interesting journey as well as Dre. So, and when they came together, what changed? So I was just exploring all those things. Like, I knew what I knew, but there was so much I didn't know.
So were you given an initial brief by anyone, or was it all coming from you?
On Jimmy and Dre?
Yeah, just on telling the story and the
I
story.
wasn't given any briefing on Dre's past or Jimmy's past. In fact, I learned a lot about Jimmy I didn't know.
Oh, tell us.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know all this stuff in the film about his early years and the record plant with John Lennon and then Bruce Springsteen and then him producing Stevie Nicks and Tom Petty. None of us knew that in the 90s because there was no Google search. So I had a record deal with Jimmy. I didn't know about his rock history because Jimmy would never talk about anything but what he was doing at the time. And he's still that way, you know.
And you speak to some massive, massive names in the film. How difficult or easy was it to get hold of everybody?
It was pretty, to get these rock stars in this film was a lot simpler than it would normally be because they still had a connection to Jimmy or Dre. And they still had love for Jimmy or Dre. So it wasn't as challenging as it would have been if there was a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who proved the most difficult to pin down there? There's got to be one who you kept on calling. I'm like, come on.
Patti Smith was the most challenging one to interview. Not because she ultimately sat down because she loves Jimmy, but she just normally doesn't do interviews. So we had cut the whole thing without her, and it was actually great. And in the 11th hour, she came around, and it just made it so much better. But yeah, she wasn't in it initially.
But you've been in the game a long time, but did you get starstruck by anybody?
That's a great... Stevie Nicks. Yeah. I've had a crush on Stevie Nicks since I was 5 years old, so to sit there with her was just it was everything to me.
Did you still have that crush when you met her?
Of course, yeah.
The sparks flying?
I proposed, everything.
And how did it go?
Not well, because she let me know real quick that music is her first love.
Okay. Second. What was the most revelatory thing that was said about Jimmy and or Dre? Did you get any scoops from anybody?
I mean, it's all in the film. That's what's so funny is that, yeah, it was all revelatory. The whole journey. There's so much about those guys I didn't know. But I think the most dynamic thing for me personally that I took away, because there were so many lessons, was that they both purely operate for what they're creating at the moment. I'm talking about, it's almost absurd how their eyes will glaze over if you start talking about sports or this or that. If it doesn't have to do with what they're doing, that's how hyper-focused they are. I was really taken with that because sometimes I needed to learn that focus, I guess.
And is that why you think they're such successful businessmen in their own fields?
They're operating at such a high level as far as focus that's what I was learning. You know, not that I knew how to focus, but not sustain it like that and be so concentrate. So that was my biggest takeaway. You know.
And any other lessons you learned from the two guys?
There's an encyclopedia on writing because there is so much. You know what it is? The thing that they both do that I learned, they don't take a lot personally. I mean, even if someone says something that's offensive, it rolls off their back. They keep moving. They don't get hung up on things. And so that was another. I mean, there's so many things like that where I'm like, wow, they should have a bigger ego about this, and they don't.
And it's one of Tom Petty's last on-screen appearances. What do you remember from that interview, and how did you sort all that out?
From what I understand, it was his last like full on, because we took like 2 hours with Tom Petty, so it was Tom Petty's last like interview where he gave us a lot of time, you know. And I just was taken with how laid back he was, how honest he was, because he can be biting and funny and loving, and salty at the same time, you know. And between setups, he'd go out and smoke a little joint, come back in, or a cigarette, come back in, and he just had this wonderful spirit. There was this moment where I was, because I'm shy, but I wanted him to play something on the piano, and it's in the film, and I couldn't figure out what to tell him to play, and I'm like, someone help me, and someone said, stop, Don't Do Me Like That, and he just on the fly started playing, and I was very intimidated, but he was sweet enough to do it, you know, and you could tell he was still. You know.
There must be lots of offcuts from all the interviews that you did. Will we get a chance to see any of that stuff, the extra stuff?
Yeah, there'll be some extra stuff coming out. I don't know when, but you know, I think for me, I need to get away because it's 4 parts. It's 4.5 hours. It took me 4 years, and I'm just now getting my life back, and it's so exhausting that. And fortunately, the company who financed this was like. Supported me 100%. So all of it's in the film. There are great things that are on the floor, but most of the great stuff is already in the film.
What insight did you get into Treys' character from talking to his mother?
That was lame.
What insight did you get into Treys' character from talking to his mum?
They both have a high threshold for pain, Dre and his mother. I mean, they do. I mean, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain, and I was learning that, and you see that in the narrative because they've experienced quite a bit of loss. So I learned a lot about what keeps Dre back to that focus. Even when there's pain, he has this incredible focus that his mother has. His mother is very ambitious as far as life ambition too. Like she would always tell him, if you're gonna be a garbage man, make sure you own the company someday. You know, so there was all those things I learned where his work ethic came from. Dr. Dre's work ethic came from his mother, and she had him when she was 15. So you can imagine.
And are there any other music stories that you'd like to tell in the future? What would be your dream project?
I think it's here at Netflix. My dream project would have been doing Prince, but I think that's a wrap on that one.
You know, there's still stuff you can look into.
Would have been. I'm getting ready to work on something that's actually, as far as documentaries though, I don't think I'm going to do one for at least 5 years because it just. Although I found that this journey in doing this documentary and documentary filmmaking in general was way more rewarding than doing fiction features. It takes everything out of you, you know. We're 7-8 months removed, and I'm just now getting my life back.
And finally, what is then next for you? Any amazing new projects on the cards that you can talk about?
Shit, I can't talk about any of them. When I was younger, I used to talk about all of them. I used to get robbed up. No, my next feature film is like one of our greatest recording artists of all time, and I'm wildly excited about this one.
How far along the line are you with that project, or is it very
right in the
early days?
beginning stages?
Okay.
Right in the beginning stages, but I'll be shooting next year.
Okay.
Yep.
When will we find out what it is?
In about 6 months,
Okay.
you'll find out what this is.
Waiting. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
That's yes. Is that what that is? The
Yes.
shirt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
It is.